Hello and welcome to Patito's Gang. Some reports say that Nigeria is out of the recession. But are we really out of the recession? Today the gang weighs in on whether or not Nigeria has seen the end of the recession. Let's tune in.
This is Patito's Gang. And the big question is, now that we are out of recession, what next? The big question is, how are we going to have a robust enough economic growth to take care of a population growing at close to 3%, to provide the jobs that young people need in order to actually harvest a demographic dividend, where the opposite is angry, idle young people leading us towards some kind of anarchy. So where are we on those? There are those who even say, look, the movement, even if it's a technical thing, is so marginal that if we're not careful, we'll go into a double dip, as somebody here will remind us of very soon. If these are some of the issues, what should we be doing? There are in fact those who think that we wasted a wonderful opportunity in this recession to change the trajectory of our economy. Now we are back feeling good. People are praising themselves or disagreeing, depending on how partisan you are, instead of saying, hey, what could we have been doing? What should we be doing? Where could we be going? And that's what the gang will take on. And I think that clearly, Zeal, this must challenge you every day in some of the stuff that you do.
Yes, it does. It does. In fact, a few days ago, when it was announced, I was talking with the Dr. Yemi Kade of the NBS, and he enlightened me on what makes you get out of a recession. And it was agreed that once you have a positive GDP growth, you're out of a recession. So on a technical definition point of view, that's okay. However, I'm not as held up or stuck up with the word. A recession, negative 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, is a signal of a recession. So that is what has been defined as a recession. But I believe to plot a chart out of recession, we need to be looking at more than GDP. Now, we should be looking at job creation, we should be looking at productivity, we should be looking at household income, savings, and all of those things. And those are the things the GDP should encompass. So when you have a 0.55% rise, I mean, it's great that we can now technically strike off the fact that Nigeria is in a recession.
Yeah, because there's a demonstration effect that's not helpful.
The impact of everything that happened prior to 2 quarters of negative GDP growth is still real. The job losses are still real. The unemployment rate is still real. The lack of productivity is still real. The tension in our foreign exchange market, which we are still very susceptible to, is still real.
Yeah. I think one of our greatest challenges is actually this focus on the technicalities. I always approach this from the perspective that what is governance about? It's actually the impact on people, not what the figures say, not what the technicians say, not what the economists say. And prior to us going to this recession, during this recession, and now in this period of what, like you said earlier, we can't really call a recovery. My challenge is that how does it affect the common man out there? Forget the enlightened ones who know what a recession is. The person who's looking at my income hasn't changed, but my expenses have gone up. He has a child who's graduated after spending a lot of money sending the child to school, and there's no job for the child, so he's feeding this child. And unfortunately, I think we have a situation where government doesn't look at their performance in terms of this. And if you want to relate it to the employment sector, it's like you employ somebody and you say to him, oh, what are his KPIs, what are his key performance indices, right? What are they for government? Is it the recession figure that's the issue, or the comfort of the people? Yeah. And I think that's one thing that somebody has to focus on.
The major problem in all of this is the extreme partisanship of our environment. Of course, partisanship is important. That's how you put governments on their toes. But in most countries, there are certain areas of elite consensus.
Yeah.
The things fundamental to that culture, where yes, we can disagree, but within the context of, but here, there's no, how do we reason together as a people to chart a course out of a national problem, a national crisis? How do we deal with these kinds of issues?
Obviously, there's no, what I would like to describe as unanimity in terms of what we should all be looking at. Zero make the point and look at those indices. And coming up here, my son asked me, "Daddy, you're going for discussions on Pastor Gang." As far as we are concerned, we are not even sure discussions, whether at that level, which in any case we appreciate, or at higher levels, with the kind of decibels that is coming from government, makes sense to us as youths. 0.05% increase, perhaps coming out of recession because of the rains begins to fall effectively. And so you may have to come out despite government. Government is not coordinated, there is no efficiency in government, and the voices are all jumbled together. To the woman in Oshodi or the woman in Sabongari,
What is recession?
they are not feeling it. But we are seeing the opulence of government being highly skewed to a privileged few. You talk about people not being paid salaries in states and what have you, and legislators from those areas are amassing wealth and cars. Yeah, maybe the recession is coming out for them, but for us, we are not feeling
I
it.
actually did manage to watch a very interesting conversation on legislators' salaries, senators' salaries, and incomes that just, it was so ridiculous. I was going to call Sheung Baloyi and say, why are you getting yourself in this? It doesn't make any sense. These people don't want to discuss the issue.
No, but you see, that's a fundamental thing. That whether it's the executive, the legislature, neither of them has the interest of the people. And you see, it's a numbers game, right? We say Nigeria is 170 million people. If 20 million of you are happy and comfortable, and 150 million people are suffering, Nigeria is suffering. And that's a point that I think is being missed. And in this situation, you don't even have 5 million people enjoying. Because everybody, all the businesses, everybody's weighing their position. Nobody's committing to any long-term investments today because they don't know what long-term is.
That's a more important indicator for me than recession, non-recession. We're going to think of the future. And in most economies, what you measure that tells you really where things are, investor confidence index, supplier purchasing, all those confidence, those things determine what future business activity will be like.
Yeah.
And those matter so much more than
how many new projects are being started.
Yes. In fact, when I lived in the States in the late 70s, one of the things that used to come up on the news every day, and I've made that point before, was housing starts. Yeah. How many new houses did they start building in America today? Daily. Walter Cronkite, towards the end of the CBS Evening News, housing starts for the day.
This is the point I wanted to make, and it's the NBS has done what the NBS ought to do: collect data, measure it, release it.
Yeah.
This is what the data says. However, as a government, we should be looking at the metrics that make up that data.
Yeah.
So the question is, the government's target should not be we want to have X% GDP. The government's target should be if we can create 5 million jobs and do this and do that, it will translate to this in GDP. So don't look, because for example, if we start bleeding oil from the pipelines or oil prices crash, we all know
we're heading back down.
we're heading back, and that is almost certainly out of the control of God. But job creation, how many, we said we're going to create, was it 3 million jobs in the first year? Where are we on that? Yeah. The minimum wage, where are we on that?
That takes us to the commonsensical aspect of economics. And having multiple foreign exchange rates. We've always had multiple foreign exchange rates.
Yeah, we do.
Are we serious?
To most people, there's just one exchange rate.
Are we serious?
That most expensive one.
If that is going on, and there is no apparent coordination in terms of these basic things, interest rates.
I think on the note of that seriousness, I'll go and consult my doctor. We'll take a break. I see the doctor, I will come back.
The gang made an interesting point. Is our government properly measuring Nigeria's economic improvement? What factors would you consider? Let's hear from you.
When the government is saying that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
I feel now that recession has stepped aside. I feel the federal government of Nigeria should consider investing in the manpower of Nigeria, investing in the youth, investing in local businesses, small and medium scale enterprises, so that we can, build, the GDP of our nation.
Now that recession is on the decline, I believe the Nigerian government needs to focus on specific sectors, and perhaps the call for restructuring should be adhered to. The government needs to focus on creating structures that the different sectors in the economy can now build upon. Creating structures that can facilitate or enable the private sector to do what it is supposed to do, which is to produce, to be productive. And once Nigeria increases in its productivity, then definitely recession will be something that should not come up. The government should listen to the cries for restructuring, but restructuring isn't necessarily just political. It should be an economic sort of restructuring so that we can have an enabling environment that encourages the private sector to thrive and contribute to the productivity that Nigeria needs to grow.
Okay, and we are back. Now, my doctor says to me that he's not sure of my state of health. So I've consulted the prayer warriors, I've consulted the Babalawo, I've consulted, and actually, the Babalawo reminded me of something I wrote.
Have you gone to the doctor in London?
In London?
Yes. You
No,
need to go to the doctor in London.
I go to the US.
What happened to the doctor in Lagos?
The doctor in Lagos, my wife and her colleagues are having a conversation about whether or not they should go on strike.
I don't think you're going to have dinner tonight.
So, really seriously, this thing that I wrote years ago was a speech I gave somewhere. It was titled Voodoo Economics, Jujunomics. And Voodoo Economics, Jujunomics, and there was another one, I've forgotten, this was like a lecture I gave in Calabar many years ago. But instead of worrying about statistics of all kinds of sorts, why don't we just worry about
the fundamentals?
Nigerians, yes.
But you know why? The government has no incentive to worry about Nigerians because, guess what? They don't believe it is the Nigerians that voted them there. You see, everywhere else, in any other society, you're worried about what the common man thinks because you're going to go back and ask for his votes. I'm sorry, the politicians don't believe that.
Let's rephrase that a little. We all know he who pays the piper dictates the tune. The politician pays the common man.
So he owes them no obligation.
So so before election,
that's
they've
why
distributed cash.
Yeah, that's why
I cannot be paying you and you are dictating to me.
So what
in the civilized world, it's the other way around.
It is the fact that they put jobs on the table,
that gets them reelected.
That's not what gets them the votes.
At the end of the day, people's power remains latent, and I think seriously, people, when you went for your medical consultation, I didn't mind consultation. I didn't have to go to the US, just down the road
to Dubai.
General Hospital.
General.
And there's a young lady there, because we had gone on, CSR visits. And the young lady is 25 years old. She walked to me and said, "Oh, good morning, sir. Oh, thanks for coming to visit us here," and stuff like that. And she held on to my jacket. I looked at her. I said, "How old are you?" "I'm 25. There is a lady, she's on her way out. She's been on dialysis. And if we don't get this dialysis now, because I have asked, the hospital has tried, Lagos State government has tried, her people have abandoned her. She is on her way out unless if I can get 15,000 naira. And that happens on a daily basis. Now, my point is this. Does that pain
Translate.
Yes. Does that pain
Translate.
the other person?
Does government
yes.
not hear it?
At the end of the day, what are we collectively as people doing about that? So that goes, well...
Are there statistics? Because you see, what I find is a lot of these things, there are a lot of low-hanging fruits that if government had they had an interest, they could address little things at very little cost that would actually have an impact on people. But when you focus on this, maybe it's because I'm not an economist or I'm not an accountant, when you focus on all these figures, what does it mean to the common man out there?
You know, back in those days, they used to say it's about growth without development. That's a big focus on all this.
Non-inclusive growth.
Yes. And there's so many people outside the basket. Everything is about a few people, and he's setting up a time bomb for tomorrow. Why is it difficult for the leadership elite, if you want to call somebody disagreed with me when I use the term, I say, can you use elite to describe what we have? the power people in Nigeria, what is it that makes it so difficult for them to see tomorrow more clearly? Why is this
No, I think they see tomorrow. They see tomorrow very, very clearly. They just see it from a different perspective from us. What they see. So what I'd say is, look, we do not, as long as we don't have a social safety net, what it means is once you get into power, all you're seeing yourself is, okay, I'm here for 4 years. After the 4 years, what next? So I need to amass enough wealth so that I can run my generator for the rest of my life. My children cannot go to these schools. They have to go abroad. So that's what they are looking out for. They're not looking out for the people that put them in office.
But what about the nice guys who are in power somewhere?
It's actually worse than that. Look at, where was the Mo Ibrahim Fund founded?
How many people have collected it?
No. It was founded to provide an incentive for African leaders to live properly at the end of the tenure.
But it's for the president, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for presidents, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one individual.
No. But I want to illustrate. So what you have there is, as prestigious and rewarding as that fund is, they don't find it enough incentive to do the right thing that will enable them to get when they leave office. They don't even want to leave office.
Why not? Why would they see that as an incentive? Look, the basic theory of strategy says whatever it is that is going to pay me, as far as I'm concerned, take it all.
It's because there are no consequences to bad behavior.
I don't care.
That's the longer
I don't really care about what you feel. Without you, I can still get back into re-election.
So what do we do to the electoral process? We need to save ourselves somehow.
But I think we should get back to recession discussion.
Recession. No, but it's about recession.
Recession discussion. Recession discussion. I know the recession.
Because that's a fundamental thing that's going to drive it. It is the day the powers that be, whoever is in an elected position, recognizes that what I do now will have an influence on my ability to come back. That's why you have legislators who don't care what you think, because they don't have term limits, and they believe that as long as they pull enough resources, when it's time for elections, they're going to come back. So there's no incentive to go back and render accounts to people who sent them there.
Okay, but if there's a double dip recession, if we're going to return into recession because we're not making the right choices, if we wasted the opportunities of recession to diversify the base of the economy when the incentives were, really there to do different things, isn't it likely that it will create enough poor people to lead to an attack on the few who seem to have, including those people in power today, who will be the ones who will be the victims?
That's the real risk.
We
already have those numbers.
I'm not even sure.
When the poor becomes very hungry, it begins to swallow the rich.
No, but we've had these poor people for a long time.
I think part of what we have missed I just say, and I understand that clearly, leadership by the horns, leadership by the tail. I still think there's too much timidity in terms of
That's what I was going to say.
the leg. Look, how many?
What they're thinking about is how does my own person get in there so I can take advantage?
How many of us have called our local government officials?
Yeah. It's not timidity. You know what I call it? I call it abuse. I call it abuse. It's a variation of the Stockholm syndrome. That is, the average Nigerian has been so abused that we cannot hold anybody to account. Not because we don't want to, we don't even know that we should.
Well,
it's not that we're timid, we're abused.
If you are pushed to the wall far enough, I don't believe the average person in Nigeria is as poor as the person in Togo. The Togolese have gotten up and they said we're going to hold people to ransom. So I think
my big fear, and it goes back many years. So you ask me, why are you still holding that fear if you first expressed it 20-something years ago? There was a day under military rule when things were really so bad, fuel queues, this, and I was driving on, I think it was a cool bridge. You could see the anger of the people. I was really scared that something could happen to us. You know, I just diverted from where I was going and drove straight to Ike Nwachukwu's place. At that time, Ike Nwachukwu was, I think, Minister of Foreign Affairs or something. And I said to him, if you people don't, what will happen?
No, if you remember,
20-something years.
And then everything just went down.
In the days of some professionals, it reached a stage where even if you had petrol, there was no petrol availability. If you had petrol, you were afraid to go out. Because if you went out and you got to an area where you got caught in traffic, some people come and start hitting your car that you must be one of them. Where did you get petrol? It was that bad.
And that's why I feel sorry for political leaders who think that Nigerians are stupid, nothing can happen.
One day.
It takes the smallest spark and this whole thing is over.
One day.
And it will be a smolder.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, I repeat this, irrespective of how poor.
So they say we're out of recession, but people don't know it. We don't see the impact.
But
now that we are
take
saying we are
advantage of the
getting out of recession,
because the recession can be a very good thing.
now that we are saying we are getting out of recession, let's hold our destinies in our hands. Let's work with our hands.
The key thing is
Let's be much more efficient. Let's call our governments to account. Okay, I am saying this should start from the local government level. Okay, all of us cannot match to Abuja. Let's go to the government and we should be interested
I think if we're going to say how do we take advantage of the recession, the key thing is government needs to sit down and look at what are the key things that impact on the people.
Again, you know, I mean,
what do they do?
Let me ask you a question. What is the strategy of this government about the recession?
So those are the
There's no strategy.
But you see, I know that these things keep going. I want to take an alternative view. Why do we keep talking about what government should do, what government? Why don't we pretend there is no government?
and then we do what we need to do. The rains are falling.
But we're already doing that. We're already doing that. And like Zeus, no, seriously, like Zeus said, we're probably out of this recession in spite of government. Because people have sat down and looked at, I mean, everybody in their own respective way, you looked at it and said to yourself, you know what, nothing's going to come from there. What can I best do to ensure my own future? And that's what everybody's doing in their own respective ways.
Okay, while you're discussing this, I'm going to go and look at my future because the thing seems to be hanging on the balance. I will do something about it.
But there is a future for Nigeria if we all take our destinies in our hands.
No, absolutely. Actually, I'm extremely optimistic about Nigeria's future, but it's not going to come from a group of people, Nigerian people saying, you know, we can do it.
Yep.
And the thing is, just do it.
Many Nigerians have not seen improvement when it comes to looking for jobs and finding affordable housing. So perhaps we should look at these factors and consider them when we want to measure the improvement of our economy. Well, that's all that we have time for today. Thank you for joining us. Join the conversation. Be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms displayed right there on your screen. I am Nenna Jemie. And until next time, take care and be well.